the company had gotten duller. I came up with an idea for something that I thought needed to be fixed. Everything takes much longer, is much more expensive. Revenue rolls in much slower. You have to be smarter, have better technology, have a better systems because you're competing with a guy who raised $500 million.
Hi, everyone. Most ad tech founders start in code. Eric Frankel started in Hollywood. He ran a multi-billion-dollar division at Warner Brothers before leaving the suits and studios to fix what he saw as broken in advertising. Today, his company, AdGreetz, uses AI to create thousands of hyper-targeted video ads in minutes. And he's got the scars and wins of building a deep tech business without an army of salespeople. In today's show, we go deep on founder mindset, smart pivots, and what it really takes to stay ahead when the world's changing fast. Eric, it's great to have you on today's show. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Eric, why leave Warner Brothers when you were at the top?
Primarily because I had done it. I'd been there for 30 years. Almost everyone who ran the company for those 30 years, or the people that I respected the most and looked up to and thought were innovative, had gotten very rich and left. And I thought that, the company had gotten duller. And then really probably is I came up with an idea for something that I thought needed to be fixed. And I was in a place financially where I could take the risk and leave the warmth of the big company and do something else. And by the way, the moment I announced I wasn't going to be there, I received a whole bunch of offers that were even substantially better than the Warner Brothers offer, but I still decided to go out on my own.
And you mentioned broken, when did you realize something was broken? And what did you do?
Well, really, I've always looked at things that were broken, but with regard to what we ended up building, when I realized that almost every digital message I got, meaning things that I got in email, things that I found on a social media platform, things that I saw on websites, email that I received, or things I saw on a streaming platform were really no different than the marketing I grew up with, which were ads in newspapers and magazines and direct mail and broadcast television. It just happened to be a phone or a computer, what have you. But primarily, I thought the world was filled with generic video ads and static display ads, which were no different than that newspaper or television ad. But in digital, I knew there was lots of data. So everyone, like it or not, knew everything about each of us watching here today. And you didn't have to make things that were static or dull. And you could actually talk to people and thank them for a transaction, or say, we miss you. We know you like a blue sport coat and you haven't bought one for 2 years. So we wanted to reach out to you to tell to you today in the town, city, village you're in, and say, our blue sport coats are on sale. And by the way, we also have them in black, brown, and tweed.
That's very hyper-personalized from what you're telling me right now.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
when did you realize advertising was broken?
When I would shop at a very luxurious department store chain in the US that unfortunately has gone out of business, called Barney's, of which there were somewhere between probably 7 and 12 in the country. And I would go there and buy a fabulously soft, beautiful Italian wool suit, shirt, shoes, tie, and come home and start getting ads about women's clothing pushed to me or getting emails about women's clothing, even though 2 hours earlier and for the last 15 years, I'd been buying men's clothes. And that led me to say, gee, I wear Nike running shoes before I switched over to another brand called Hoka. And Nike's never asked me if I need another pair of sneakers. Like, hey, if you're an athlete, you should change there are two types of people who wear sneakers: fashion and other people who do it for exercise. And if you do it for exercise, there's a common wisdom that every 6 months you should replace them because they wear out and then you'll hurt your knees and your hips and your ankles and your body. So I always thought it was like so logical after buying these things online for 20 years for them to say, hey, Eric, if you're an athlete, do you want another pair of these? And they know what I bought, and just click this button. Because I would usually keep them longer than I should because no one was reminding me to buy them. Or if I like to fly to location 1, 2, and 3, I always wondered why my particular airline of choice never asked me, they haven't seen that I've booked a trip to New York for 6 months. Don't I want to go to New York? but they would ask me if I want to go to Akron, Ohio for $69, which I didn't want to do. So and then they would do it with something that looked like a print ad from a magazine in 1982.
Got it. And Dr. May, what's a Hollywood habit you had to unlearn as a founder?
Having two assistants.
How many do you have now?
I have one, but unfortunately, he has so much responsibility. I wouldn't really call. I mean, I was never a person who took advantage of that, meaning I never had people who picked up dry cleaning or did things that were personal. I had lots of help. I mean, I've always been impressed. There's a Hollywood guy by the name, which leads to other question I'll ask in a minute. There's a famous Hollywood executive named Jeffrey Katzenberg. And Jeffrey Katzenberg is famous for having 6 assistants. Why?
Right.
Because you're a busy person with lots of things on your mind. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of things that you want to accomplish. My assistant and I have a list of dozens and dozens and dozens of things that we want to get done, people we want to write to, follow-ups, zillions of things we need. And for the kind of executive I am, I can almost have unlimited manpower helping me achieve all of those. And if I was at a bigger, more successful company with better financing, I would have all of those. And this is going back to the conversation you and I had a week or two ago. This is all about delegation. So this is where I learned one person cannot do it. It's all about a team. It's all about smart people. It's all about letting everyone have their own responsibilities, having the most talented people and letting them go out and succeed, because one person trying to do it all will almost always fail unless it's a single kind of a business, maybe sitting at home and writing novels or something like that.
Got it. And for the viewers listening in, do you want to give us a 30-second or 1-minute spiel on what AdGreetz is about and what
so we do
two
things. We do 2 things and they're very related. So I believe, for example, that my wife should very often be seeing a different ad or message than I see. I believe that my 27-year-old son who lives in Brooklyn should. So there's a $1 trillion business called marketing, and the average brand historically has made one message for every person in the United States of America and or maybe UK and maybe even the world. And so we believe that we're all different and that you can utilize data to make message that people embrace more, pay attention to, and are activated by. And it's not only because it has somebody with salt and pepper hair versus someone who's 22, but if you're going to tell me to have a Burger King Whopper today for lunch, I believe you should tell me where my Burger King is that's nearest to me to make it easy. Or when you're telling me to go see the new Brad Pitt movie, you should be telling me underneath the ad where the 1, 2, or 3 or 4 movie theaters, depending on where you live and how many movie theaters there are, closest to me are playing it at what time. So as I see the ad, I can turn to my wife and say, honey, do you want to go see that movie on Saturday at 4:00 at the theater that we like in Culver City, for example? So we make smart, data-driven, relevant ads that people embrace and pay attention to and are activated by versus hating marketing, which most people do, but nobody ever says. And then the other thing that we do is we now are able to make super high quality ads and messages that look like what you would see on television, social media, or any other channel in every format that exists with AI. Our other businesses, we've taken 49 of the top AI, what are called foundational models, 62 versions, put them into one boutique hub, and you can go in and ask it to make commercials. And we've designed intelligence into the system, and it says, oh, we should use this model, that model, this model, and it will write a script, record original music, record voiceover, pull approved pictures from the website. And in 6 minutes or so, you'll get a terrific looking commercial or a freeform video or a display ad. And then it's connected to every ad platform in the business. So you can press a button and push it into Facebook, or you can run it on television, or you can run it on Amazon or wherever you want.
Got it. For the audience listening in, it sounds very expensive, but for a small business, a medium-sized business, what's a typical commitment they have to have?
Yeah. So when we started our original business, which is making 35,000 ads a week for Honda and Acura. Some listeners may not know Acura. I guess it's the luxury model of Honda. That's for bigger companies like Honda. Our new business allows anyone to make these commercials or to make these free-form videos. So if your wife wanted a video of your dog flying around the Tower of London, you can. And that product's just getting ready to roll out to consumers. We've been focused on agencies and media companies, but that will probably run closer to $50 a month. Then bigger companies will pay about $1,000 a month per person to get access. So that's sort of following the Michael Bloomberg stockbroker, desktop box that allows you as a stockbroker to go out and garner all this information. And I think, people on Wall Street, pay $2,300 a month for a box. So ours will range from about $49 to about $1,000.
Understood. And tell me something, what you just mentioned about being hyper personalized, to your age group, to the likes that a person has. Why do businesses not do it? It sounds like common sense. Are they being lazy, or what exactly is the reason?
All of the above.
All of the above.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't sit here. It's not advantageous for me to insult
No.
the client base, but the answer is lazy. The old bad habits die slowly. I mean, at Warner Brothers, when I was pushing the concept of streaming television, rather than linear, rather than getting DVDs sent in the mail, rather than going to your video store, the idea that you could press a button and watch whatever you want. Many of the smartest, most significant people in the media business said that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. No one would ever do that. And of course, eventually we convinced them all to do that. So, just a lot of people are very happy doing what they do every day and keeping their head down. And I would argue COVID even made that easier because they don't have to go to the office as much and they don't see their boss as much and they don't have as many meetings in a conference room. So people just want to do the same thing over and over again rather than sit here and say, what's the better way? What's the better way? What's the better way? How do we disrupt this? How do we blow it up? How do we make it better? How do we make it less expensive? What's wrong with the current model and how do you improve it?
Understood. And speaking about, dumbest ideas, let me ask you this question. What's the dumbest smart decision you made early on in your career when it comes to that?
Say it again. The dumbest smart
decision you made early on?
Well, I mean, I guess it was going to work at Warner Brothers. I did a lot of interesting things in college. I mentioned this last time. When I went to college, I went into my first intro class and there were 350, 400 kids in a giant conference room. As a kid coming out of high school, you've never been in a classroom that has 350 or 400 people. You're used to going to class with 24 people and you go, oh my God, everyone in this class wants to become the next movie director, programming guru. So I said, I'm going to get a job. So I did. So in college, I did all of these very interesting things so that when I graduated, then when people would say, what did you do? And people would say, I just graduated from this communication school, this good college. I'd say I did A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that would make me stand out from the 349 other kids. But when I was offered a variety of jobs and you have no idea what you're doing because you're a dumb young kid coming out of college, even if you had those 5 jobs and you might know more than the 349 other ones. It was deciding to take a job at Warner Brothers, in my opinion, versus NBC, versus working for the largest concert promoter in New York City who offered me a job versus other opportunities and taking that one and getting lucky and being skilled enough to get 30 years out of it and then enough. So I don't know if that's the dumb decision or the smart decision. It's the smart decision to go work there.
Understood.
And by the way, the dumbest decision may be becoming an entrepreneur because I got offered lots of other jobs for even 2 times the amount of money that I was making at Warner Brothers. And the entrepreneurial thing has maybe been the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done. But so far, it hasn't been as financially rewarding as it would be to work for these gigantic publicly traded companies as in a very, very senior position with big salaries, big bonuses, and big stock opportunities.
But you mentioned the keyword, right? It's fulfilling. So that's definitely the dumbest smart decision, right? But if you look back, let's say if you're 75 and you're looking back at this decision, would you regret getting into entrepreneurship?
I think what I'd like really is another opportunity to do it again and take everything I've learned as an entrepreneur and correct those mistakes. So the average mistakes that an entrepreneur makes. One is not raising enough money. So that you're underfinanced, which means you're understaffed. And as we all know, via reading, whether it's true, but we'll assume it is. I would bet that 97 out of 100 companies that launched when I did as a tech startup are gone and out of business. One, it's very advantageous that we're still here and we're having this discussion. But when I went into it, you sit there and go, in 3 years, this will be worth $1 billion. I'll own a third of it. And boy, will I be on easy street, in addition to being fulfilled from having this dream and ideas fulfilled. Next thing you know, everything takes much longer, is much more expensive. Revenue rolls in much slower, and so on and so forth. And then going back to your comment a minute ago, I run into senior executives all the time who say, why would you want a different ad for a 20-year-old than a 62-year-old? And because the 20-year-old doesn't want to look at someone who looks like me necessarily. Correct. There are certain examples where they might, and I might not want to look at an ad that shows 20-year-old people because we're in a different world and we have different goals and objectives, and it's less relevant, and in turn, I'll pay less attention and be less active.
Got it. I mean, you mentioned a good point out there, right? To have the correct finance or the right finance. What are the other two things if you would give, entrepreneurs who are starting off on a similar journey?
I'll give you a good one.
Go on.
So I originally hired lots of people my age.
Your age, okay.
So that wasn't very old, because I didn't know what I was doing. I went from a position at a major studio running a very significant business to deciding that I was going to be a tech entrepreneur. So I took a lot of my smart, talented, and slightly dissatisfied people who were tired of being in that grind and brought them over to my new company. Mm-hmm. And so they got paid about 3 times more than they would have, and they weren't native digital people. So at one point in time, I told the majority of them, unfortunately, to go home, and I replaced them with people who were 24, who earned about a third of what they got paid in those days, because I was trying to keep people's salaries in place with what they had previously earned. This is before the explosion in salaries where you read about AI executives earning billions of dollars a year and stuff. And so there was a lot of wasted time with the wrong team, the wrong players who earned 2 to 3 times the amount of salary that more talented people who understood the space better.
So the lesson is hire someone smarter than you and younger than you.
Put the right people in the right job. Don't hire them just because you like them and you think they're terrific, because they may not be good at that job.
Got it. And tell me, why didn't AdGreetz scale like you expected it at first?
I would say, and I didn't know it at the time, and I didn't even know it for years. And maybe it's just that I'm ignorant. In my career at Warner Brothers, when you had something good, not that it was ever easy, but you could tell your customer base that you had something good and they would want it because they needed movies, they needed television shows, they needed to feed their engine to stay alive. In this business, what you need is best in class technology, which we had, but to cover the waterfront, you need dozens and preferably hundreds of salespeople. And I didn't understand that. I thought they would respond to good. And the answer is no, they were happy to do the same thing. So you needed people to more or less live with them, to visit them regularly, to take them out to breakfast, lunch, or dinner, to take them to a ball game, a concert, a Broadway show. That was the nature of the beast. It had nothing to do with being best. It was the most boots on the ground who take these people out and befriend them, get their money.
And that's what you lacked. And do you have it now today?
No. So that's what we lacked. So we've tried to compensate for that through partnerships. So now we deal with companies that have lots and lots of salespeople, and they go out and sell our technology on behalf of them because they're smart enough to realize that it makes what they do better. So if you're a media company and you sell advertising, if you own 20 television stations and you also have digital play, you can be selling the same old ad that you have for the last 60 years, or you can be saying on our digital platform, we can call out all 187 the McDonald's franchises you own, CMAC.
Right.
we can call out the dry cleaner, and we can do all of this unusual stuff. So they go out and sell on our behalf because they have 270 salespeople just covering this particular area. And they're interested enough and they're the guy who's interested in a better product, a differentiating product, because they're smart enough to know that much of the world is commoditized, and you want to have something that differentiates and makes people like what you do better than what the 12 other guys knocking on the door do.
Got it. And speaking about products, why do worse products sometimes win in marketing?
Because they have boots on the ground selling them. So I know many competitors and other people in the business who have mediocre product, who are just good at getting it into the store, so to speak. So they were smarter than me. They knew what they were doing. Instead of raising X millions, they may have raised as much as 20 times X. And part of their plan included having 120 salespeople, and instead of our couple of salespeople. And their plan included not just hiring you as a salesperson, but hiring you if you were the former head of sales at Google UK, and hiring this guy who was in charge of Meta or Facebook UK, and this guy in this country, and so on. So very well known, very established people who had been out there for years, whining and dining, and had been the most important. You couldn't run your business without a Google and without a Meta. And now they come and they say, instead of Google or Meta, I do this. But they get paid lots and lots and lots of money. So you have to be in a very good position financially to have been able to afford to get that star player. It's sort of the equivalent of sports, where the Ronaldos and those various,
Messi and all.
Yeah, Messi and the football players we all know of.
Got it. And, when it comes to teams, what did being the gang leader teach you about teams?
Well, it taught me a lot. I mean, so first of all, we have like a whole set of values, and it's shocking to me how hard it is to teach those values. And the other problem with not being as well financed as you would like is, on a sports team, you sit here and you say, CMAC isn't scoring goals like he used to. He isn't defending the goal the way he used to. We're going to trade him out. Doesn't matter that we love him. Doesn't matter that we like him. It's just transaction. So we have regular weekly meetings, and I would say the major goal of it, and we start off with our values, but the values are more or less communication. You can't run a good organization unless the right hand knows what the left hand. And then we have a whole variety of other things, built in there, honesty and all those kind of things. But the logic is that everyone knows what's going on. If it was the old days when you had things called receptionists, the receptionist knows what our top 10 priorities are. And that allows everyone to row in the same direction to try to achieve those goals, and yet to be agile enough and nimble enough, which is another value, that it could switch from this morning to this afternoon because all of a sudden there's an opportunity with Mercedes-Benz that takes priority and pushes Toyota or Procter & Gamble off to the side for an hour or a week. But yet you have people who you go to a meeting and they haven't communicated at all. And we're like, well, how can you not, and you have to sit there, and you're not trying to berate them, but you have to say, look, communication. If you're doing that, CMAC, you need to tell everyone. None of us know what's going on. And it's usually as simple as copying people on correspondence, because you waste a lot of time saying, CMAC, did we get that thing out to Procter & Gamble? And I don't want to ask that. And if there are 50 things going on and you have to ask about 50 of them, so you say, CMAC, you need to copy the team on all of this. So in a perfect world, you say, CMAC, we have to trade you to this other team or what have you. But if you're not if you don't have the financial wherewithal, you can't necessarily say, let's tell CMAC to go. We're going to have to pay him off something. And the new CMAC is going to cost 25% more because he's better than CMAC. There's a lot of 22s in the world of not being a gigantic company. And there were even those same, scenarios running a multi-billion-dollar division. But all of these things that you learn as an entrepreneur, you try to set yourself up differently. On the other hand, you worry that if you would raise too much money, would you be spoiled again?
Hmm.
What we've learned is it's not about fancy offices like we had at Warner Brothers. It's just about getting the right people in place and getting the right work done. And so, as a not phenomenally financed, well financed company, we've become, and this may not play with you in the UK, the bad news bears, which is a hard scrabble team that ends up beating the guys who look like they're the best team in the business. So, when you're understaffed, underfinanced, you have to be smarter, have better technology, have a better sense of values, systems, automation in place, because you're competing with a guy who raised $500 million for his business and you raised 25 million.
Got it. And along that same theme, what's the one belief that served you well for decades that we're here today?
I mean, I'd say it's hard work, honesty, transparency, and trying to delegate to the team and get great people who deliver for you. Unfortunately, I believe there are two types of people out there, and I don't really like the second group, but I can't seem to figure out how to only get the first group. So the first group are people who have assignments that they have to do.
Mhm.
And this is an analogy or whatever. They sit outside your door saying, Eric, I want to come in and show you the 27 things that we discussed, them all ready to review.
Mhm.
Those are the people I like.
The foot soldiers.
And then there are people who you have to chase. CMAC, what happened to the 27 things we discussed? I just realized it's Thursday. I mean, today's Wednesday, but it's Thursday. Yes. And you told me you were going to have those things on Monday. I'm juggling 1,000 things, so I'm not in charge. But you're supposed to have had all these things done. We're supposed to have reviewed them. And where are you? So I don't like people I have to chase. I like people who are organized, have to-do lists, get it all done, and correspond in a polite manner and say, I have everything. When would you like to go through it? Or I'm just going to go out and get it done, because that's how you're effective. So it's team members who are talented, organized, effective, and you delegate to them and they deliver even beyond your expectations. And you go, not only did he get it done or she get it done, but they got it done brilliantly, and it's elegant and it's compelling and it's interesting and it's better than my imagination was when we discussed the assignment or the opportunity.
The independent ones, that's what you like, who can go and get the job done. Eric, you have amazing energy. Tell me, how do you keep your energy and vision fresh today?
I mean, are you born with it or not? I don't know. Maybe. So maybe it's genetics, but I don't know. I had an overweight father who I would see doze off, even though he worked until he was 70 something years old. I work out with a trainer 4 days a week, and I try to get 10,000 steps in almost every day, maybe one day a week, not. Some days 8,000, but some days 18,000.
Yes.
A weekend when I'm doing a lot of walking. I eat really well, primarily because I have a wife who is a great cook, and B, we live in California where it's about farmers markets and fresh.
Oh, yes. Love it. Yes.
So we're not eating fast food. We're not eating processed food. And then I sit there and I, have an Apple Watch and I time my sleep. And I try to make sure that I get, 7 hours. And if I could get 8, and even better. And then when I feel really tired, it could be 8 o'clock at night and I can say, I'm going to go to sleep now and see if I can even get 9 hours of sleep, because I start my day most days at 5:30.
Got it. How important is mental fitness for you?
It's really important, and again, I think a lot of that is genetic, because as I get older, I'm finding friends and family members who have mental health issues. And I think when you and I were younger, people didn't talk about that as much. That was the weird kid in the back of the class or something, and then that kid grows up and might have those challenges for the rest of their lives. So I don't know. I wake up every day and I'm happy. I don't know if I've talked myself into it but yet I spoke to a friend yesterday, who's suffering from depression, bipolar, and all of these other, ailments that are out there, which we now recognize. And isn't anything to be looked down upon. It's something to try to figure out how to solve and cure, whether it's medication or whether it's therapy or whatever. But I wake up happy and positive and say, I'm going to try to, kill it today in a good way. What can we do that's smart and innovative and fun? And how can I inspire my troops? and how can we close deals and generate money for my investors? How can I be a good husband? How can I be a good father? How can I be a good son? I have a 94-year-old mother who's in good health and has all of her marbles, as we say.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's luck, skill, or what, but I think, eating well, sleeping well, and exercising apparently is beneficial versus sitting on the couch and weighing 400 pounds.
Do you meditate?
No, I don't meditate. So everybody's like, the thing I'm missing is the meditation.
Yeah, transcendental meditation is big out there in California, isn't it?
Well, I think meditation is sort of big everywhere now. I mean, it was when it first came around, it came here before it came, after it was in India or whatever, it became popular out here. But it's become, it's sort of the fourth wheel. I mean, if you're going to say, exercise, sleep, and eating well, then people would say, oh, if you do 10 or 20 minutes once or twice a day of meditation, that would be the next pole of good health. And to a degree, maybe I do meditate because I use a similar tactic to get to sleep because my mind races, which many people do. So when I get into bed, if I'm not physically exhausted from my day, which sometimes I am, I lie in bed and try to clear my mind of all the thoughts, all the stuff that's due, remembering that person who was supposed to come in on Monday with those 8 projects who never did and go, oh my God, whatever happened to? Oh, I didn't call back that person. Oh, I didn't respond to that email. And I just try to clear my mind and breathe very deeply and count from 1 to 10 and try to think of blackness and nothingness except for getting to sleep, and boom, I'm out, which I think is, yeah. And I did try to, and by the way, I recently tried to sign up for a meditation class, get the last puzzle. And unfortunately, and I did it was some kind of a VIP thing, oh, this guy, he's the guru.
Right. Of course.
David Lynch, who is a famous director, runs this meditation. He doesn't run it, but he has his thing and we'll get you special access. And the special access was I was going to have to drive an hour and 10 minutes in traffic to get to this place, and then an hour and 20 minutes back. And it just didn't fit my schedule because LA is a trafficy place. So I ended up abandoning it. And here we are talking about it 3 years later.
All right. Speaking about AI, what's the most exciting AI use case nobody's seeing yet?
I don't know. I'm not smart enough. And I actually have people who work for me that are actually doing a lot of the technical intelligence of it.
Got it.
Primarily, it's just, it's a fabulous. And by the way, when we talk about values with the team, it's like, hey, guys, you have to embrace AI in everything we do, especially when you're a lean team, but anyone everywhere, because whether we like it, whether the robots are taking over the computers, whatever, if you have any of that negativity, which I don't have at all, it's like, I used to at Warner Brothers have research teams and they'd come back in 4 days to give me a report. And I now get that in 12 seconds by a little typing and pressing a button, and it says good or better than what a 4-person research team would do in a couple of days. So it's just, it makes almost everything better. For us in the business we're in, the 2 biggest hurdles to advertising was it took a great deal of time and it cost a decent to a lot of money, depending on who you were. But you couldn't do ads quickly, and you had to spend a significant amount of money, which kept many SMB, small, medium-sized businesses out of the marketplace. So we've now solved that. So we can let anyone make a terrific looking ad, in 6 to 7 minutes. And for very little money, for sandwich money now. What sandwiches are expensive, but it doesn't have to cost $50. No, it can cost you $12. But the point of the story is, so for our business, that's what's important. But to me, what's really important is just how do you make, what do you do tomorrow that's better? What do you do tomorrow that's better? What do you do tomorrow that's better? And not that you're never satisfied and you're an angry person about it. It's just this ever never ending quest for better, faster, smarter, more compelling, whatever you want to call it, so that you don't become that retailer called Sears Roebuck, who when I was a kid, even though we didn't shop there a lot, it was maybe the most significant department store in the US, and every country in the world has their Sears Roebucks. that are long forgotten and have disappeared.
Got it. When it comes to yourself, who forms part of your inner circle?
That's one of the bigger challenges that I have at this company. First of all, when you're understaffed and overworked, you're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. So you have less time for what I'll call thoughtful, analysis. At a Warner, you have a legitimate number 2 guy in your division and a legitimate number 3 guy and a number 4 guy and a 5 guy and a 6 person. And that 6 person has a number 2 and a 3 and a 4. And so you have a whole brain trust that you can, and you're all in an office in those days, and you go out to lunch and you come up with new ideas and you discuss things and so on and so on and so forth. At a leaner company, you have a lesser brain trust. So one of the problems, if you remember at the beginning of the conversation, when I said I replaced the expensive old timers with less expensive new timers, so they may know how to code and they may understand the world of what a typical person wants to do on Meta and Google and so on and so forth better than the 50-year-old. But they don't have the experience necessarily to be as good at brain trust. So primarily I have a CTO, I have a chief of staff, I have a head of marketing, but it's leaner than I would like. I would like to have a bigger team to get things off my desk and be able to spend a little bit more time with a couple of other senior executives that we don't have, to be able to game plan a little bit more.
What would you want to be remembered, or what's your legacy that you want to leave behind?
Well, first of all, I don't really care about that much. In other words, what I really care about is, I care about my family and friends thinking I was a good human being who was fair, honest, and kind. So that's what I would say to them. I've never been a person, to me, I worked for a guy, great guy, brilliant guy, fabulous guy, worked for him for 20 years, and then I took over for him. Someone like him, I would argue, to him, it was very important to have a half a page in the New York Times obituary. To me, you're dead. Who cares? I don't care at all. And even if I was 10 times more famous, I don't think I care because I'm dead. So it would be the same thing. Fair, kind, charitable. I love being a good teacher. When we talk about those young kids, you don't remember there's a line. Do you even know what To Sir with Love is?
To Serve It. It's an old movie, isn't it?
It's an old movie. So it's an old movie with Sidney Poitier, who goes to an inner city school, I believe in London, on the outskirts of London somewhere, and becomes a teacher to a bunch of ruffians. And over the course of his tenure there was a famous song that came out of it. And it says he took them from crayons to perfume. So to me, I enjoy taking people who have the innate intelligence, or many of them who don't even, or don't think they do, and turning them into skilled, competent people who could go to work in any company and succeed when they were sort of bumbling, fumbling, very green people. I would say being a teacher and getting the best out of people. When I left Warner, maybe the most meaningful thing was a bunch of younger people who worked for me, coming up crying and saying, I never thought I could be any good. I thought I was just an okay guy. And you taught me how to be fabulous and all of these other things. So that's very satisfying.
That's amazing, Eric. That's all for now. That's a wrap. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Eric.
Thanks for having me.